A new UFO whistleblower has come forward claiming to have worked on out-of-this-world craft firsthand. That's right, they put their hands on the craft and studied and worked on it. And they came forward on Reddit. Let's dive in and see what this is all about, y'all. If you're new to the channel and you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And please hit that like button, vetters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below. What do you think about this post that I'm about to read from Reddit of a gentleman claiming to have worked on a UFO firsthand? Let's go. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Patrick, this is on Reddit. What are you doing, dude? Trust me, I get it. But this thing has over 3,000 likes on the subreddit aliens. And that's quite a bit, to be honest with you, right? And again, people have been posting or commenting, releasing their information through some odd places as of late, i.e. Jason Sands on a Twitter space, right? If you're not familiar with that, I'll put links in the description so you can find out about the last UFO whistleblower who came forward through, again, a Twitter space, right? And this is on Reddit. Maybe this is just the new way, right? I don't know. People seem to really respond quite well to this, to be honest with you. So let's look, I'm going to read it. It's quite long. I'm going to read it, and we're just going to go over it. And y'all can decide what you want to do with it, right? All right, here we go. It says, I worked on a team that dealt with, they put with twice, so that's interesting. I worked on a team that dealt with NHI technology and left in 2018. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a couple things in here that definitely, you know what? I'll tell you when we get to it. Says, hi, I'm writing this because I never got any sort of debrief or moment to decompress from a job I quit in February of 2018. I worked for an agency that dealt with issues related to non-human intelligence. Sometimes these were referred to as EBEs, or as a friend lovingly called them, eyes. What? I can't divulge what I did specifically. Most of the information I'm going to discuss is anecdotal information I found out about from colleagues. This is because it would be easy to identify me from what my role was, as the information I can say about what I did specifically would be personally identifying. Feel free to dismiss my post as a hoax entirely. I know the right people will believe me. I'm posting this for myself to make peace with the gravity, no pun intended, of the situation. I tried VA and independent therapy, but divulging this sort of information to a hipster trained in active listening probably wouldn't go well. What's the dig on hipsters? Jeez. Posting here is a last resort, but I hope I'm welcome to discuss what I can. I'll first talk about my career history, what working for the agency is like, how it functions, and then my general thoughts. If my post makes it past moderation, I'll answer as many questions as I can. I'm unwilling to post an ID privately to moderators or otherwise. People who did that faced consequences. I don't think those people were Reddit leakers specifically, but any act to talk about the information in any meaningful way outside of the chain of command ends badly. I'd rather be accused of making things up than risk that, because I simply don't care what people think of me. Hopefully my post will clear up why. Look, real quick, on that note, I understand not trusting the Reddit moderators. No offense to the Reddit moderators, but some of them cannot be trusted. And honestly, some of them are a little sus, man. I got to be honest, if I'm being real. I've had my own interactions with them, and unprofessional and unbecoming is to say the least. Not all of them, but some for sure. And they pretty much control, aliens, the UFO subreddit. So I don't know. I understand this person not wanting to give his ID privately, because there's no way in hell that would stay private just by giving it to the moderators. So not saying what this guy's saying is true. I'm just saying I understand that point from him. And don't worry, I will disagree on many points from this post, but that one I understand. I'm currently a university professor, not at the university my username would lead you to believe. And that is because his username is Hoosier Fan, right here, 1968. So the Hoosiers. He's saying he's not from that university. I was inspired to write this post when one of my students referred to me as, verbatim, a dude who has to know about aliens. If only he knew that wasn't even the start of it. So this guy was inspired to write this post because one of his students randomly said a dude who has to know about aliens. That's what inspired you? That's odd. That's just an odd thing to say. Just putting that out there. I graduated from college in the early 90s with a degree in something I'm passionate about but never used. I started my career as an assistant for a mechanical engineer at an aerospace contractor I got after working some connections I had. Entry-level contractor jobs are easier to get than you may think. Well, maybe not if you've posted here. I eventually was a project manager overseeing a small team working on experimental aircraft. Over the course of my career in aviation, I worked at 3 different contractors. I was on some of the teams working in autonomous flight in Nevada, among other places. I'll share 2 major things I noticed that, looking back, could be related to NHI research. It was sort of an open secret I was let in on at some point in the late 90s that if a large-scale invasion or threat to the U.S. mainland, to the mainland U.S. were to materialize, the U.S. had an ultimate trump card of sorts that would render everything we were working on as completely obsolete. Jokes like, work smarter, not harder on X, because if it were to come down to it, we wouldn't use that technology anyway, weren't uncommon. I assume this was referring to nukes. Okay. Later, I spent time doing inspections at various secret facilities due to my standing in particular agencies. If I'm identified, I will definitely lose that standing, so there's that. This was not as exciting as it sounds. It was very technical and boring. I was mostly just a glorified HVAC inspector. I visited a handful of facilities, but 2 of them in particular stood out as there were areas within them I wasn't allowed to access. At the first facility, the scope of my job was to inspect the entire location. One area had its own security who, after a long discussion, basically told me to kick rocks. My boss wasn't authorized to let me through either. I wrote a scathing report about this incident and my overall assessment of the facility, and my boss erased it from the document entirely. The situation at the second facility was similar. I'll admit I was what I guess my students call a Karen about it. I knew that whoever was operating these areas was working completely outside of congressional regulation, which, while it does happen in certain sectors, is really not a good look. Once I got the job I'm talking about, I was able to confirm the second facility was related to NHI research. I was never able to confirm the first was. What a weird... So this guy's writing scathing reports that no one asked him to write? Dude, you're, as you put it, a glorified HVAC inspector. So what, no one cares what reports you write. I mean, this is just so weird. I'm just saying. It's a little strange. After a teaching stint, I was offered an interview for a position in my project management roots again near where I was living at the time. I wasn't told what I would be working on, which isn't uncommon. I was excited to get back to work because I'd been working on goal-oriented drone swarms in my free time and assumed that's what the interview would be for. The interview took place in a skiff in someone's house. Looking back, this was most likely a house that wasn't lived in, but used for the purpose of interviewing potential hires without giving away the location. It's also likely this was the location because this agency doesn't exist in any official capacity. Yes, it has a name. It gets kind of funding. Saying the name would get me killed. I wish I were exaggerating. I was told the name at the start of the interview, and I had never heard of it before. I'd never even said the name out loud. Paradoxically, even though the agency doesn't exist, if someone knew the name, it's likely a paper trail exists through publicly available documents. A lot of the information isn't classified because the agency is so secretive. Going through the process to classify it in the first place would reveal it to too many people. So he can't say the name or bring it up. He'll get killed, whatever, but he can make a Reddit post about it. It's going to get a ton of attention, and he knows it's going to get attention. Right? I'm sorry, but that's weird. In past interviews, particularly for the inspection job, I could refer to specific colleagues, facilities I worked at, or contractors I was in good standing with to play the usual interview game. In this interview, I was treated like a brand new hire. While I was already offended about how I was being treated, the interviewer started grilling me about my love for Star Trek and said that theatrics wouldn't fly in the position I was being interviewed for. Looking back, I should have never accepted the job, but the allure of working on swarms was too great. The first office I worked at was an office building that didn't stand out in any way at all. I believe our neighbors in the office park were a fashion studio and a dentist, among others. The difference was our building had 24/7 armed security. The first few days were heavy paperwork and onboarding. One of my old bosses called me on an office phone to talk to me before I was officially onboarded. As a management nerd, the biggest challenge of working for this agency is that it's a paperless office. It has its own highly sophisticated intranet with hundreds of archival documents. The implication was that unless it absolutely had to be saved, to never ever write anything down. Okay, I could just see like you're saving something in the computer and someone comes over. Does this absolutely necessarily, 100% need to be saved? I mean, there would be protocol for that. That makes zero sense that that's the rule. Unless it just has to absolutely be saved. What's the line in the sand? Everyone's is different. There would be protocols of what needs to be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I remember an early colleague telling me a Gantt chart is a great way to get fired. A Gantt chart? I don't know what that is. This was a challenge at first. Remembering all of the information with no documentation is not something I'm particularly built for, especially when the information is about NHI. This makes zero sense either. So they're just going to hire somebody, not know what their capacity for memory is. This guy's saying he's having a difficult time, unless it just absolutely, necessarily 100% needs to be, saved. Whatever. I don't know. It's not looking good. When are we going to get to the craft, dude? Let's get to the craft. That's what people want to know about. Am I right? Later, I worked in a facility within a facility, just like the one I tried to inspect. It stored a craft. Here we go. Being near the craft for extended periods of time is extremely dangerous, especially if it is being experimented on with power. I didn't observe any injuries to anyone while I was there, but all sorts of long-term nasty injuries were relayed to me through rumors and warnings. The craft was shaped like a dreidel without the handle, There was a large exterior piece that went missing when it was recovered. The theory is it acted as a stabilizer, although some argue it was a crude weapon. It sat in a custom hydraulic rig that could be used to rotate it into all sorts of different positions, kind of like those Aerotrim astronaut training balls where they spin you around. I wasn't on the team that got to use the rotation rig. The rig was so large and extensive, I spent a few weeks thinking it was part of the craft before someone told me otherwise. Typically, the craft would held on its side in the rig for easier storage. Its weight just naturally sat it that way, although it was intended to be flown vertically. So he couldn't tell that this man-made hydraulic rig wasn't part of the craft and it's on the ground and attached. Like, what is it's got probably cables coming out of it. I mean, and I don't know. This just seems so weird. But okay, I mean, it definitely makes sense that they would have some sort of something under the craft to help support, that does make sense. So they could work on it, look at it, check it, right? I'm not saying that none of this makes sense. I'm just saying none of it makes sense from this guy. But I don't know, right? I'm curious what the comments are going to be. I'm sure most people are going to dismiss it right off the bat just because it came from Reddit. And I get that. But we also, I hate, we do have to go through this stuff to see. You never know. People, weirder things have been released online. Let's put it that way. So, it is easy to dismiss, and I'm right there with you. But, we're in a new era, and people do come out with information in different ways now through different mediums. That's just how it is. You may not like it, but, why Reddit? I don't know. I mean, he didn't go to a podcaster or somebody to do it, which is typically how a lot of people do it, or go to, Jeremy Corbell or whatever, right? So I don't know. It does seem very LARPer, right? Like a LARP, live action role playing, right? Someone just wanting to believe they did this, pretending they did this, right? How do I make it sound like I did this stuff? This is me. What do I need to put in? Right? That's why you can tell there's a lot of insecurities in this post. I don't care if you believe me, sorts of things, right? This could be, go ahead and think it's a hoax. We wouldn't say that if it was real. I don't know. You're just prefacing, right? You're projecting. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they heard it from someone who is real, right? That's also possible. So I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to this. The shape was directly, they're talking about the craft. The shape was directly informed by its purpose. Every shape is custom molded in a metallic material that would revolutionize the way we travel if we had it. In following the topic as much as I can manage to, I've seen some other people mention the material. There were some material scientists that had been working there for decades. I never got to go inside the craft. It was guarded 24/7. Boy, did I want to look. Interesting. The agency goes out of its way to hire individuals who have little interest in working in this space at all. I mean, that makes sense. They recruit particularly out of BYU, Brigham Young University. Although you have to have a contractor or government career for around a decade to be considered for an interview. Published papers don't hurt. When I worked at the second facility, the sorts of people that were there were frustrating to interact with because my initial reaction to working in that facility was extreme excitement, and it wasn't shared. I believe this is partially responsible for the stagnation, high turnover rate, and compartmentalization. High turnover rate? What? So there's just, that would lead me to believe that there are a lot of people then who have worked in these programs and, are out there. High turnover rate. What is this? Target? You're not having a high turnover rate. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you would. I don't know. I quickly learned who to trust and gained some enormous that helped my work. I don't know. Part of why I'm being secretive about my ID is because the turnover rate results in a sort of summer camp work environment. It's easy to point to classes of people in various non-leadership positions that all were hired, fired, or quit at similar times. If I said when I started, ended, and where I worked, I'd be easily identifiable because there are so few people that match my description. Leadership has been there forever. No, not literally. I mean, part of why you're being secretive is because the high turnover rate. I mean, again, I thought you'd be killed. Wouldn't that be the main reason? But hired, fired, or quit. They would just let you quit. That seems weird too. And fire you. I don't know. Jim, you ate Susan's fish out of the fridge in the common area. You fired. Like what? Like you get a couple write-ups. Like I just don't see this. If there is this program, I just don't see them running it the same way. You know what I mean? Like Popeyes runs their place. Like I just don't. I don't know. But with that said, as I'm saying that, this sounds a lot like what Bob Lazar described, right? Just bringing in different people, right? Like I don't know. Maybe there is something there. The agency is divided up into several wings, not unlike the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. I'm not insinuating they're a shadow government, but the wings check and balance each other in a way that a government is at least designed to. These wings include mechanical engineering, biologic research, weapons research, computer science, tracking, what I'll call anthropology, what I'll call crash recovery, because that's what colleagues who are planning to come forward will call it, and security. Colleagues who are planning to come forward will call it crash recovery. Yeah, that's what everyone calls it. But so he's saying he has colleagues that are planning to come forward, like on Reddit, or really, or is he connected to Jason Sands? Like, who does he know? I'll be curious to see what shakes out from this over the next few days, and we'll see. What's unique is these subgroups exist all as part of different parent government. Oh, sorry. I'll list some. Let me go back. What I'll call crash recovery, because that's what colleagues who are planning to come forward will call it, and security. I'll list some information about each. There are definitely more wings that I don't know about. What's unique is these subgroups exist all as part of different parent government organizations and are HQ'd where their parent agencies are. For example, the tracking wing is kind of embedded as R&D at NORAD. This is a simplification of the actual paperwork involved. It's honestly complicated, and I don't know much about how it works. I do know that is how they maintain funding even when the parent agency goes completely dark for stretches of time. It's worth mentioning that these departments employ at most 50 people each. It's typically much lower than that. This is why we're all pushing for whistleblower protection. It's not hard to identify us because there are so few of us in the first place. Well, you already have whistleblower protection in place. And let's be real. The whole point of a whistleblower is you don't get protected. Right? That doesn't make any sense. If I'm being honest, then they're not you know what I mean? What I don't understand. He just said it's not hard to identify us because there's so few of us in the first place. We just said there's classes of people, high turnover rate. This has been going on for decades. There's a lot of you. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Mechanical engineering is exactly what it sounds like. It's the most expensive, the oldest, and the most compartmentalized. We have crash craft in various states of complete. We had a recovered craft that worked almost perfectly that was shot down by ourselves. What? By ourselves? I saw this coming, and it's part of why I quit. There's a lot of information about this wing in the public sphere. Part of their job is to determine what each shape of craft is used for. This is an important job because we're unsure of NHI's intentions. If we discover the designs are intended to hurt us, action will have to be taken. I don't know what that means in practice, but it's what the engineers mostly study. If we discover the designs are intended to hurt us, what? I mean, designs are designs, right? You have helicopters and planes like we do, right? And you just add arms to that. You add missiles and machine guns to them. I mean, I don't understand what they mean by that. And how would they know that? We discovered the designs are intended to hurt us. The design will hurt us. What it's capable of will hurt us. Like that it has weapons on board. That could be just for defense. That doesn't necessarily mean it's meant to attack us. That just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. That seems like a weird way to go about it. If that's what they're studying. Consider this lecture around the 10-minute mark about the differing characteristics of an F-22 versus a passenger plane. I get that point, but that makes zero sense for them. They wouldn't have any reference point to go off of to know what the NHI's, if they don't know what the NHI's intentions are, that's a lost cause then. You don't know what the playing field looks like to sort of judge what the non-human intelligence craft is, their intentions. Does that make sense? What the craft is intended for. Anything you find, you wouldn't know. You have nothing to base it off of. So that makes zero sense to look at it that way. That's a huge red flag to me. And I get this whole F-22 versus a passenger plane. I get that. It's got other capabilities that a passenger plane does not have. I get that. Aside from, for getting missiles and machine guns, right? Like, aside from that, right? Like, I get what they're saying, but that makes zero sense. That doesn't mean that NHI think the same way we do, right? What if all their planes are like F-22s, even their passenger planes, just to be safe, right? Like, we don't know. Again, that's a weird way to go. I mean, that makes no sense. Since we're humans and those are human designs, eventually a team could figure it out. It's not as easy when the designs aren't for us or purposes we fully understand. Exactly. Triangles are the most impressive design, and we don't have one. It's likely China does. Leadership is mad about that. This team discovered a long time ago that the reason why craft appears so bright to us humans is because it's not really light, but rather the product of the crazy amounts of power these craft require, sort of like smoke coming out of an exhaust pipe. What? They're saying the light is the, smoke from the fire. I mean, they wouldn't have figured out a way to, just dead giveaway of where you are. That doesn't make sense. Biology is something I personally suck at, even at the high school level. I can say the NHI look like the aliens from Close Encounters. As far as I know, we never had one alive. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? That's all people talk about, is that we got alive. I mean, my source who told this was unaware if it was true or not. I didn't learn much about this wing. It's the most secretive. I do know its HQ is hidden in almost plain sight. I still feel like the guy who told me where it is had to be lying because it was just too obvious. There are bodies stored in other locations apart from their main HQ. Weapons research is a large wing and is fairly new. It was absorbed by the Space Force when the SF was created. Frustration with the SF as a whole is part of why I left shortly before it started. I don't know much about it. There's a high turnover rate and it's dangerous to work in. People were injured and compensated by a large private aerospace contractor instead of the United States government. Its main job is to strap a nuke to a reverse-engineered craft and just see what the hell happens. Hang on a second, guys. My dog is going nuts here. Give me a moment. Mac, ven aquí. Sube aquí. Ven, Mac. Mac, ven. Ven con papi. Ven aquí. Ven. Sube. Sube aquí. Mac, sube. Sube. Okay, he's just going to hang out next to me here. I can't pan the camera down. You can't see him. Computer science is, or was, it may have moved after I left, HQ'd at a facility in my home state. This is rare because most of the other wings are within a stone's throw of DC or Nevada. This is mostly based around researching the craft's navigation system. The navigation in every craft is the same. The craft uses a system that originally befuddled generations of researchers, but it's essentially a 3D Dijkstra algorithm. I don't know what that says. It finds points around the craft and chooses the most efficient possible route through space-time to get to that point. Some of the parameters it uses to gauge efficiency are totally unknown to us and are a serious point of contention. It's not autonomy, but rather obstacle avoidance, not unlike what you would see in a self-driving car. But the self-driving car could go through air, space, and water without worrying about what medium it's in. Additionally, the algo accounts for the craft's place and time. I don't think this means that the craft time travel in the way we think they can, but rather go so fast that they experience dilation and can hit objects in the future and potentially past at their target destination. It's possible they do this on purpose sometimes. I don't know much about the internal programming of the computer or how it actually does any of this. Hang on. There are a few senior scientists that hold that information dear. One of them jokingly refers to it as IC, as in C for NHI. I know that he doesn't work with a computer, only a pad of paper and pen. Okay. I mean, so they know all of this? Okay. Let's just keep reading. Although the algorithm, this guy is now he's the hipster, is extremely effective, nuclear explosions and experiments somehow interfere with this navigation. Craft particularly avoid Diablo Canyon, even if we put something they really want there. They mostly avoid previous crash sites as well. More on crashes later. even if we put something they really want there. What are we talking? Like a Starbucks? What are we talking? Speaking of avoidance, tracking, like I mentioned, is or was part of NORAD. The NHI deploy craft of various shapes and sizes all the time. I don't want to claim that they have advanced cloaking techniques, but from what I heard, the tracking department basically is in an eternal game of cat and mouse. They don't have adequate technology to track the transmedium craft. All I would say on record is NHI know we can track them and know how to avoid us. They usually avoid detection by going underwater, especially in the case of particularly large, by human measurement, enormous craft. It's interesting that historical UFO designs mimic the designs of buildings and vehicles of that time period. Whether this was just humans not being able to reference what the designs look like or a form of mimicry is anyone's guess. Someone in leadership knows the answer. I don't. Interesting. This guy is so interesting. Oh, sorry, guys. Hang on. All right, hang on one second. All right. Let's get back to this. I didn't put my dog up for a second. Where was I? Okay. It's important to note. Yeah. It's important to note not everyone at NORAD was part of the tracking team, but the tracking team is embedded in NORAD and interfaces with them on a minute-to-minute basis. This leads to scenarios where NORAD will report an object, and the tracking team will silently acknowledge but give no explanation. This led to a catastrophic incident that happened after I left but knew about from a colleague. Supposedly, tracking is being moved to the Space Force to clear up these miscommunications. If I were working there, I would probably be working on that onboarding process. NORAD was moved to Cheyenne not only to protect from a foreign adversary, but also because the facility is uniquely equipped to track NHI craft. The wing I called Anthropology is the weirdest one by far. It focuses on a few different things. They originally studied NHI's intentions and culture, if it's possible to call it that. The reports I read from this early research changed the way I see the world. Anthropology and computer science were at one point decompartmentalized to study how the NHI interact with the craft. The NHI are linked to their craft in a way that borders on biological. The actual way they interface with the components of the craft is not as sophisticated. Take this video. Although it's an immature video, the way he interfaces with a piston that moves the gas pedal is similar, albeit much simpler than the way NHI interact with their craft. They send signals using their body to systems that control the craft. It's hypothesized that they can and prefer to control craft remotely, but I'm not sure if we were really researching this. Okay. Again, I'm going to put a link to this, so some of this that he puts like links, you can go see them. I'm not going to show it. It's too much. This video is getting long. Take note that if the driver of the jerry-rigged death trap in the video panics, the car would accelerate due to a heightened brain activity. When people wonder how a super-intelligent being can crash, this is part of the answer, in conjunction with the navigation system malfunctioning. I personally don't think the NHI feels stress as we do, but if they heightened their activity and overrode the pathfinding system instead of letting it do its job, there could be an accident. What? So he's saying the aliens are flying the craft. They got it, they're controlling it with their mind. And then, if they see a hot girl walk by, oh my God, boom, they crash the craft or whatever scares them. I don't know. Maybe. I never heard that before. I'm not going to lie. That's a new one. It is interesting. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I know I'm making a joke here, but that is interesting. Of a reason that they craft. I had not heard that before. Okay. A smaller subset of this wing focuses on how humans can interface with the craft that are currently in the sky. If you see an image of a large disc above a gas station in the snow, it was someone in this department summoning a craft, not unlike how cheap RC car controllers can interfere with each other when used at the same time. Some people are better suited to interfere with NHI craft than others. We're not sure why. If you see an image of a large disc above a gas station in the snow, that's so specific. It was someone in this department summoning a craft. So basically signals can get crossed. You can, like walkie-talkies. right? You can just be listening in on someone else's conversation, you know. So all the truckers out there like, what's your 20? Big guy, where are you from? Planet Reticuli, or what's it called? Planet Zeta Reticuli? I don't know. Guys, come on. I don't know. It's possible. On a somewhat comedic note, see, even this guy likes to laugh. One colleague was harshly punished. Whoa, Jesus. Okay. One colleague was harshly punished for using this research to encounter NHI craft at a party. There was an outdoor bonfire, alcohol, and questions about what she did for work. She wasn't killed or anything, just called a dumbass and told to never, ever do that again. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to be honest. This little paragraph right here, this little part, that reads total BS, y'all. Who writes like that? What are we talking? You would just call him a dumbass? Oh, God, you almost blew the whistle on our super secret program, you dumbass. Don't do that again. Oh, you were at a bonfire with alcohol, the way he put that, with alcohol and questions about what she did for work. Hey, we're at a bonfire, we're drinking. What do you do for work? You know? Oh, get in there, guys. She's about to reveal it. Then you get her in the office on Monday morning. Hey, listen, you dumbass. We're not going to fire. We're not going to kill you or anything. But we are going to call you a dumbass, and don't ever do that again. Okay, get out of here. What are we? I mean, come on. Some people in this department are BYU graduates who believe they're directly interfacing with what were recorded in the Bible as angels. This is an even smaller subset of this wing that focused on NHI communicating with humans. All I know about them is they did that work at some juncture, but probably have other jobs now. Probably, like, why would you know? What, you know, what kind of insinuation is that? Why even prophesize that, right? Like, they probably have other jobs now. Why? Anyway, crash recover. And how do you go to another job after that? You were communicating with what you thought were angels from the Bible, and you just moved on to another job. That's just on your resume, right? Like, yeah, I did that for a few years. Now I work for eBay. Like, what? Crash recovery probably has the most people involved. It's split up among several parent orgs, but funding is funneled away from it and into other departments when there's little activity. This is common among the entire agency, as funding and staff get balanced between the different wings based on progress or lack thereof. Most of the crash recovery staff are staff from tracking and security that are involved in crash recovery. It's also made up of members of all of our favorite three-letter organizations. Crash recovery's overall structure was referred to as a volunteer fire department. It's typically some people playing pool and watching movies. But when the need arises, all hands on deck from the current staff and on-call members. So it's just people playing pool and watching movies till they get a phone call, like the Ghostbusters. Boop. Time to go recover this crashed UFO that we shot down ourselves. You know, or the NHI got too excited and he crashed his craft. He overloaded the system. I don't know. That makes zero sense. Crashes are exceedingly rare. Really? Because a lot of people say it happens 2 to 3 times a year, according to Michael Herrera, according to other people, right? Like, and then some people say it's rare. Some people say this. You talk to this guy. It's like, none of these stories line up. Why don't they? That's what I want to know. I want to get all these people together. Get them all on a phone call together. Why don't y'all stories line up? Because every person is telling you this whole secret back-end operation that's running the world, and they're all different. And that doesn't make sense. Crashes are exceedingly rare. The number of crashes goes down exponentially because they learn to avoid the cause of the crash. So you're telling me they evolve on Earth in a matter of the last 80 years. The NHI. They're thousands, potentially millions of years more advanced than us, but in a matter of 80 years, they learn not to crash on Earth. They don't get excited anymore? They wouldn't have figured that out already? This just makes zero sense. When they crash, they make no... I'm going back to the thing here. When they crash, they make no effort to retrieve the debris, save for one instance. I personally believe some crashes weren't crashes, but were NHI parking a vehicle for us because there were no bodies recovered and the craft was in perfect shape. The donations, we've heard this before. Diana Pasolka spoke about this on Joe Rogan. It's brought up many times, what they call the donation, right? The NHI are donating the craft to us, even though they also fly around going to places that they might have things that they want. So they may take it, but they may not go there because it affects their craft. They also, right, like add all this up together and things completely contradict themselves, even within his own, whatever statement here. Security, to put it mildly, are terrifying. Imagine the very best of the SEALs, NSA, and Secret Service all working together. They're short-staffed, but that staff is not only elite, but dedicated. Their numero uno rule, what? Their numero uno rule is people that mention the agency name are killed. It's not a question, and it happened during my time. You'll hear more about them as news about the retaliation Dave comes out. I wasn't directly interviewed by him, but I know several people who were. Interesting. Dave wouldn't have interviewed you? Okay. The security team figured out quickly, and you could say they aren't his fans. They constantly monitor all discussions about the topic, but rarely act in real life unless absolutely necessary. So apparently they're not going to know about your Reddit post, and they're cool with this. They won't be able to get you from this. There's a lot of personal touches to this whole post by this guy that if you worked with him, you would know, oh, that's Jimmy. Right? So this makes zero sense, y'all. And I hate, why bring up Dave Grusch? Why bring him into your post so that it adds credibility? Now you're including David Grusch, and now he would have to comment on this. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's important to get these LARPers and hoaxers out of the way. They ruin a lot of this, man. They really do, in a really bad way. And it hurts David Grusch's credibility. Right? Just packs on more stuff that he has to deal with. And people with real stories to tell. But maybe I'm wrong. But this in no way seems like a real post from a real person who actually who did all this. This sounds made up from all kinds of different stuff. Who knows what? But why bring Dave into it? All right? You would have said that at the beginning. But it's just weird. And they constantly monitor all discussions about the topic, but they're letting this through. Again, they staff facilities. I'm going back to the page here. They staff facilities like the second one I worked at. This team also actively engages in disinformation, gaslighting, and other similar campaigns. Their goal is to keep the U.S.'s secrets about this tech secret because other countries are close to breakthroughs. They also conduct counter intel on what other countries know and counter intel about what they know about what we know. Not to sound crazy, but the security team will see this at some point or another, so a friendly hello to them. Can't touch this. Seriously? Can't touch this? He's like sticking his tongue out at him? I mean, honestly, it's a joke. It's like a slap in the face to people who follow this topic. That's what this post is. And they're going to be people like, well, wait a second. This is a slap in the face. These LARPers and hoaxers, you know what they count on? They count on you wanting to believe this. They will say the things you want to hear, and they count on, people being a little naive and ignorant, but not in a bad way, just because they're good people and they believe people, right? But people take advantage of that trust that a lot of normal people have in people, right? They take advantage of that trust. Right? Because you always hear somebody say, why would they lie? Right? You hear that a lot. Why would they lie? I have a hunch that the current public-facing task force are actually their own wing within security. A friend of mine texted me once, Sean Kirkpatrick, you can get your ass kicked. What? That's all he texted you? Ha! Don't confuse these public-facing task force with the work Dave and co. are doing. Dave is the real deal. Okay, see, he tries to bring Dave Grusch in, call him Dave. Honestly, what a disgrace, if I'm being honest. It's kind of disgusting to do that to him. Just tell your LARPer story. I should mention that leadership is kind of on its own wing. It's not on paper, but they operate above all the other departments. Leadership is made up of managers who pay close attention to each wing. They discuss info they know and bring up contradictions to upper managers. I don't know how far this chain goes up. I reported to someone who reported to someone. I believe it goes higher than that. I have no idea who's at the top or what their credentials are. I suspect they're in the private sector with their bankroll disguised as R&D for government contracts. Leadership honestly made the right choices with the information they had, at least when I was there. Some bad people started to get in charge and change the way things worked among the middle managers and individual teams. This pissed people off and led to multiple catastrophes. As far as I know, they faced no discipline. What? That was exhaustive. Well, you have no idea. Those are the wings of the agency that I knew about during my time there. It feels good to get this off my chest. I've been sort of keeping up to date on the topics coverage in mainstream media and want to give some of my thoughts on this. Oh, really? If the U.S. comes out directly and says we have craft, we have bodies, it means we are on the verge of a serious global conflict like we've never seen before. They will only reveal this to the public if absolutely necessary. The way the information is going to come out is through people like Dave and further probing from Congress. Definitely not from people on Reddit. Right? Again, I know the medium is changing and how information comes out, and I'm not saying that someone couldn't go to Reddit and reveal a real story, but as I read this, I don't think this is real at all. And there's no way to prove it's real. That's the problem. And they also count on that. You being able not to disprove, right? There's people will say, well, disprove it. Prove it's not real. You can't. You can't prove a negative. It's impossible. Again, these people that post this stuff, that's what they count on. They count on all of that. Let me go back here. And again, I hate that he brings in Dave into this, David Grusch. I hate that. It really bothers me. Not all of it should be public information, but I believe the technology that is just sitting somewhere would completely revolutionize the way we live. I don't think anything significant will happen in my lifetime. Well, there you go. So no disclosure, y'all. We should all just give up. It was a frustrating job because everything was so stagnant and had so much potential. We're talking about technology so advanced it could render every single current global issue obsolete. If we solved two major issues with the craft and were able to manufacture them, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. The technology being incorporated into our technical revolution is a hoax. I heard one theory from a guy at a bar that the transistors at Bell Labs were inspired by technology at Area 51. This is a joke. The technology makes transistors look like sticks and stones. I heard one theory from a guy at a bar. Okay. I believe multiple species of NHI is misinformation spun up by the security team. There are mystery wings of the agency I didn't get to learn about during my time. It's possible one of these researchers researches other species, but I doubt that. Okay. NHI potentially experiment on us and definitely experiment on animals. We have no idea why. The main reason you'll never see organized disclosures because nobody can agree on what to say. We simply don't know enough, namely the NHI's intentions. Sort of, we have a good theory and where they are from. The Anthropology wing believes the NHI are controlled by an intelligence that is beyond our current understanding of how life works. Yet they can be easily overstimulated and crash their UFO. Okay. The biology reports conflict with this, which is why things can't be compartmentalized. If the government were to disclose info, they'd have to get the story straight. We also have no idea where they are from. We, as in everyone I worked with, it's possible someone in high up leadership knows. High up leadership? Okay. High up in leadership. Okay. I don't think the answer is as simple as another planet or caves on Earth. Now, this is just his theories, right? The reason why specific facility locations are kept from the public is because some of them are sensitive and also not entirely NHI research based. It would be possible for some TikTokers and hippies to storm the first office I worked at if they were careful. If they were careful? What? You're going to storm carefully? That doesn't make sense. That's every place where the agency works is also home to other operations, which is why it's hard to identify where they are. Lower leadership is HQ'd in D.C., and the upper management is split between Nevada, Australia, and other foreign country. Security are everywhere and potentially even work remotely without an HQ. I was contacted by a documentary filmmaker when some of my friends were, but I turned it down due to my specific involvement and how easy it would be to track me down if I gave particularly juicy info. I believe the story will come out soon. I no longer work in the field and teach full time. Here we go, guys. We finally reached the end. After a quick proofread, that's my post. I'm not tuned into discussions other than what major outlets have to say, but I hope some of my information is interesting. It felt good to type, even if my post doesn't get accepted. I feel tempted to sign off with my first name, how I always do in emails, but I have a feeling that would end badly. I'm currently on a camping trip with my family, but I'll be around to answer questions at various times. You're currently on a camping trip with your family? And what? And you're writing this entire post out? Honey, we're going hiking to the river. Hang on, I'm almost done with this Reddit post, honey. I mean, what? I've been camping lots of times. You don't have time for something like this. This makes zero sense. What kind of camping are you doing? A camping trip? You certainly don't have time for this. With your family? Yeah, I've heard that excuse a lot, actually, from certain people. I'm out camping. Curious. Is that code? I don't know. It's so weird. Okay, don't believe that, if that's what it actually is. You're out camping with your family, but you'll be around to answer questions at various times. He says, please don't DM me anything too weird. Have you seen your post, dude, that you wrote? I don't think anyone can DM you anything weirder than that. So what are you talking about? Anything too weird? Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk. It's Reddit. I've never done anything like this before. Yeah, because you said you'd be killed. I'm sorry if I couldn't provide information that proves who I am. I like not being paralyzed or dead. Okay. I'm sure you'll see others make the same claims in due time. That doesn't mean anything. Evidence, proof, that's what we need, not people making the same claims. See, he thinks that's what, and that's something I hear people do. Oh, well, this matches up with what this guy said. That should be a red flag, not a green flag or whatever. Not like that's believable. Right? Just saying. Check this out. Edit. So this is after the post. Well, this is a lot. I checked on my post earlier this morning and didn't see anything. I'll try to respond to what I can. I'm recovering from a back injury and will be up for a while. I thought you were on a camping trip with your family. And you're on a camping trip with your family and recovering from a back injury, so you'll be up for a while. Again, I don't know, man. I just don't know what to say, about something like this. And I got 2.4 thousand, right? 930 comments. People are going crazy in there. This is a long video, y'all. Holy cow. That's what he put, right? I just read that all out loud. That's what it would take for someone to go through the Reddit, probably longer, and read all that. I don't know. I guess you can read it shorter than that. But again, I don't know. Curious to read the comments. See what y'all say. We will see you guys on tomorrow's video, as always. Don't forget to join me in the Discord after party after the premiere of this video. Head over to our Discord, link in the description. All right, guys, we'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Remember, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And as always, every day's a gift. Peace.